So, welcome everybody. We will be talking right now about configuring build based on FreeBSD and what's that about. So, first of all, who am I? I'm Roberto Fernandez Cueto. I'm a software developer in Valley Wolf Games and Entertainment. I mostly do some FreeBSD programming, sysadmin, testing, running servers, managing Jenkins, everything, because I'm alone there, so please send me help. I need it. I'm not a committer, not right now, though I'm a poor maintainer for cells soon. That's Pythonish passwords, shell, quite powerful. So, where is right now? Right now on FreeBSD we have build options for the source tree that are set through these two files, source.conf and sourceenv.conf, which they are a pain in the ass. Because you have to read man pages because there are a lot of things, and sometimes there are unexpected dependencies that set themselves when you don't want them. And that happens a lot, and you realize that you have something wrong when it's too late, when you have built everything. And building the wall, yeah, 1 hour, 2 hours, depends. Well, Linux has this kind of option to configure the kernel. So why not? So let's talk about the design. You cannot see it right now pretty well. A little bit large, I think. So we take a mutex. We are doing for each source conf one configuration, so we don't want to have two people configuring the same source conf at the same time, because shit happens. So after taking the mutex, we saw the main menu with all the categories to configure and the save and exit buttons, as usual. For each category, we present the options to the user, so he can choose which options to activate, which options to deactivate, and when he's satisfied with this, with his choices, then we check the configuration, we check the dependencies of the build options, if there are any, if they are satisfied, if not, if the chosen options are default values. We don't want to have a huge source conf at the end, so we only write what is not a default option. When the configuration is correct, then we write the configuration in a temporary file, and if it's not, we go back to the configure the options, warning the user, your options have dependencies that are not satisfied, and you should check what have you done. Okay, when you select the save up button, then you move these temporal files to etc, so your configuration is permanent. You don't have to worry about dependencies anymore, and you can continue working, building, and do pretty stuff. Either you have saved the configuration or not, you clean up all the temporal files. You don't want garbage at the end, so clean up, release the mutex, and you're done. So I came up with these categories: administration, development, documentation, drivers, emulation, network. This is my favorite one, others. I didn't know where to put all those, so others, programs, and security. So let's talk a little bit about them. Administration, well, administrative programs such as BSD install, FreeBSD update, send mail. Curious thing, if you remove BSD install, you are not allowed to install the system. So for release, you may want not to deactivate this option. For the development category, which development programs and options should we use? For instance, which compiler to use, Clang or GCC? Which development tools to build and or install, such as LLDB, and so there are a bunch of them, I think. If we want header files on the final system, which in embedded platforms, those are not necessary at all, and they occupy a lot of space. So if we want to build 32-bit libraries and build debug files to debug information in the platform, or just not. It depends a little bit. Documentation, that's pretty straightforward. Shall we install compressed documentation? Shall we install examples? Shall we install HTML documentation? Shall we install man pages, either compressed, not uncompressed, or none at all? Do we want man utils like apropos, catman, and so on? Do we want legacy documentation installed in our final system? Shall we stage man pages? Do we want support for DT files? That's all that goes on under documentation. Drivers. Which drivers to build and install, such as the Geom CCD, Q's related programs and libraries, floppy support. How many of you use floppy in the kernel? Wow, no one. So why is it there? NAND support. Emulation, well, two options. Beehive, yes, no, and NDIS, related programs and libraries. I'm not sure what that is, but there is a man page that you can check it.
Trying to stay away.
Windows stuff, wow. Okay, networking. Well, everything that comes with networking. Do we want IPv4 or IPv6 support in our system? If your machine does not have access to the internet, so this option should be deactivated. Bluetooth related kernel modules, programs, libraries, and a bunch of more networking stuff that, well, I will show you afterwards how does each category looks like, because we are very generous of time. So others, as I told you before, this is options which categories were not clear for me or that need more caring to select a appropriate category. So for instance, boot options, installation options, locally, NLS, time zones. Are the best categories for those. Programs. Which programs to compile or which options to use? For instance, shall we use the BSD lines grep for egrep and fgrep? Shall we build bzip2? Shall we build the calendar, which sometimes is useful? Do we want all the dialog-related libraries and programs? By the fact, if you deactivate this option, this menu will not work anymore. So be aware, my friend. And games. For security, well, it's FreeBSD. We have plenty of options. Capsicum. Who hasn't heard about Capsicum yet? Okay, 2% haven't heard about Capsicum. Okay. Casper and related libraries. Cryptocode, Kerberos, OpenLDAP, OpenSSH, OpenSL. So I think almost everything here is known. So what's still to do? Put better documentation for the options, because right now there is nothing descriptive for the options. I didn't know how to put what's in the man page to fit in dialog 1. It's almost impossible. You have 80 characters. You cannot put everything there. So you have to limit yourself and put some descriptive phrase that could fit in 50 characters or less. Emoji. Yeah, related links to another man page could be also an option, but yeah, let's not. And do you have a question? Okay. Future work could be also configuring the devices and the options to build the kernel. That could be very interesting. And also with this option, check kernel configurations after selecting the options and devices to understand if the kernel could be built and which driver has a missing dependency or could be better configured. And also another option could be extend dialog 1 to have dependent list and not doing everything through the shell scripts because it's slow and a pain in the ass. So, wow, that was almost a lightning talk. Well, thank you. Questions about the presentation? We are going to run a demo right now. So if there is any question about this, yeah, René?
Well, we speak about how this would interface with package space.
Sorry? Can you repeat the question?
Now, if you have package space, you need to think about how that would relate to population active including?
I think the question is if you have into consideration package base.
Yes. So,
Once again,
well, if you don't say Sentinel, then you wouldn't get a Sentinel package.
wow, I don't know. I mean, you are building with sourceconf, so if you run the make package command on the source tree, you should not get the undesired options. But make package is pretty new to me. So, any other question? Not right now. So let's run a demo. So that's how the menu looks like. So if we want under administration, we see all the options that we have. And we can select and deselect several of them, like radio support and port snap. And PF, we don't want PF. So we confirm, takes a little while, so no problem. Let's take a look. At the src.conf, and we can see here that there was a dependency, so there is a bug. Good to know. So all the PF related options are deactivated, also port snap and the radio support. So we go back to here and go under Devel. And for instance, I don't want CLang, neither the full, but I want GCC, whatever the reason. I confirm. I'll take a look. Okay, where are my other options? There are several bugs, have to admit it. So I have run it, doing first of all a save, and then configuring it again. But there is still a bug. And there is another command that will be so config that shows all the options that you have, which are active, which are not, and you can also delete the configuration. So if you delete the configuration, there are no src.conf file, because of course you have deleted all the possible configuration. Okay, that was the demo. Questions about the demo? Does anyone want to come here and play with the menu? We have 25 minutes.
So how do you record the dependencies? How do you figure out what the dependencies are?
Well, I run soconfig. How do I figure out the dependencies between the options? Well, I store the the chosen options in a temporal file in a matter that looks like this. And then I run show config with the original, well, the default srcconf and the one I have created. If they match, there are no dependencies that are unsatisfied. If they do not match, there are some options that must be set or unset to match the dependencies.
Okay, but then that you do via the Make framework then?
Yeah. It's everything done in the Make framework. So the code is in a Make file, which is 179 lines. Not too much. Yeah?
Is it merged?
Is it?
Is it available in FreeBSD current payload?
And the question is if this option is available in this patch. It's not merged in trunk or stable, or it's waiting for revision and to solve the patches, the bugs. Any other question? So you can contact me through my LinkedIn account or Twitter. For my email address, come by, say hello, I'll give you it. So,
Thank you.
well done.